Hey, welcome to Ep.2. Thank you guys for already checking this out. We already had thousands of downloads and views, Ramin, on episode 0 and 1. Already off to a good start. The time I'm recording this, we're not even through the first week. We've already had a ton of awesome feedback. So we are absolutely thrilled because we are pumped about this show. And I actually had Ramin, like just the tiniest bit of anxiety before releasing, like, what if people hate the thing we've been working so hard on? And so thank you guys so much for all of the terrific feedback. A great thing to do is to comment on YouTube and stuff as things are going, and you can tag the spot and everything else, because then I'll write you back and we'll get interaction, everything going, and that helps the show. It helps generate new listeners and engage with you guys, and it helps give us feedback. So we appreciate that and enjoy today's episode. People are suckers for production value. All right. You want to get started?
People are just suckers in general. Maybe that's where we start.
That's definitely where we start. No context whatsoever. People are suckers, aren't they? Anyway, hey, welcome to the show, everybody. Today we're going to be selling you a lot of great products.
Yeah. Go to bluechew.com to get your month's supply of BarkBox, only at stamps.square.
Get your super underwear, dog treat, food delivery service supplements.
We should probably let's not talk shit about sponsors just yet. Maybe we might need BarkBox in a little bit. Times are tough, but go ahead. You were going to intro the show. Welcome to another exciting episode of
Look Ma, No Meaning with Ramin Nazer
and Shane Mauss from Conan, from Netflix, from Amazon Prime, from Here We Are podcast, but most importantly, from this podcast, the one you're listening to right now. Now, our friend Mike Kaplan has entered the building, but he would have said something much more clever and much more intricate or simple. But I have going to transfer back.
That's the correct amount of second guessing.
Mm-hmm.
It's a weird kind of Kaplan's form of second guessing him. It's a very like confident kind of second guessing. It's like, well, This is just what I do, and I tell you the inside of my brain, and some of it works and some of it doesn't work, and that's what you're going to hear, and I'm presenting it as if and if you like it or you don't like it, and some things are good and they aren't, but you'll decide for yourself.
Or you can let someone decide for you, or not. I'm just here to give you all the options, or none of the options, or a bit of the options, or maybe a fourth option that you hadn't thought of yet. Yeah, he covers all the bases, so like by the time you're still processing the first joke, he throws like 100 more jokes at you. Yeah,
he's
one of the great
incredible
mimes of our times. Did you listen to what's his latest album, AKA?
I haven't, but I saw the show live twice in its entirety.
Oh, yeah,
and then
fantastic.
I saw sections of it many times, and yeah, it's well, because it's not just that like fun wordplay gymnastics stuff. It's like through lines and meaningful and all the things. As Mike might say,
he ain't no clown.
He ain't no clown.
Yeah, but enough about Mike. Go listen to AK. We'll keep this part in, whatever. But we wanted to talk about motivation today, right? We wanted to talk about motivation and goal setting. Is that our topics for the day? Do we have questions?
So, yeah, we have a lot of things. So here's what I thought. So this started because I usually on the Here We Are podcast, come like January, I usually do, or late December, I have some research around to talk about New Year's resolutions, which is basically like, hey, they don't work, and here's why, pretty much every time. And also, it's still January, and January didn't count this year because there was coups and stuff like that going on. And like, plus, also, I was thinking about this today. January is like the worst, like, seasonal depression and everything. Like, it's hibernation time. Like,
yeah.
Why would you pick January to like, I'm going to train for a marathon? Like, no, just hang in there till springtime should be when you're like, come April or come like end of March, as soon as the trees start to like blossom a little bit, that's when I'm going to start all of my new goals and things like that. That's what it should be. Not January when you just got done building. You just got done doing like all the indulging, and then you indulged even more because of the holidays, because of the stories that you told yourself about how like you were going to turn your whole life around on January 1st. So I might as well shoot heroin on December 31st. It's like you do all of the things to set yourself up for failure, and then just try to launch into new year, new me, and it's like it never works. So I thought we'd talk about why those things don't work in terms of for a few things. One, we're starting a new podcast, so I think it will be a good like case study of like, and here's some things that we could apply to what we're going to be doing in improving upon the quality of our podcast, getting more listeners, that sort of thing. And then so the audience can come along with us and hold us to the things that we're saying and see what we're failing and succeeding.
Please come along with us. Please. Yeah. We need listenership.
And also, these are like the types of conversations that you and I have on the phone all of the time. Usually I get a hold of Ramin when I like to get a hold of Ramin whenever, but he's not the easiest guy to get a hold of. And I like talking on the phone more than most modern humans. And so I reserve my Ramin phone calls for when I'm desperate. So
just right when you're about to go to the psych ward, like when the automatic door hasn't opened yet, but you're just in range of the sensor about to grab you to open the door.
Yeah. And because we're compatible we have compatible productivity and goal setting styles. Compatible meaning I think we do things differently, but in ways that together make a lot of sense. So with that, what I thought we would do, so I asked people for questions and everything else, but I thought first I would kind of give some of the basics and just like, just have a regular conversation with you about what you do when you're trying to do some life improvement stuff and whatnot to set it up. Then we'll get into questions. So that's like the gist of what I envision the show being today, that we're definitely going to deviate from in all sorts of fun ways.
Speaking of deviation, I like that we're keeping the questions till the end, because then, it's if you wrote in, you want to hear your question, you got to listen to us bullshit about BarkBox or plugging Mike Kaplan's album or Also, I wanted to say that we are working together. We're so integrated and working together. I just realized that in my Comedy Central Tales from the Trip, you're like one of the main characters in it. And not only that, in another one of your Tales from the Trip, I'm in it even when I'm not in the story. They
Yeah,
thought
you're
that I was Bob Khosravi, but they animated a me in it.
yeah,
So like we're that
just to tie
integrated of
together
it.
the yeah, even in imaginary ways, which is that is like a very psychedelic, like new agey like approach to things. Is like that's everything's so connect, like psychedelics artificially stimulate all these like new connections, and which feels amazing because like that to me is what I think like, oh, it's all about love. Love is just connection. It's just like it's just an evolved emotion to be like, should we stick together? Let's have this emotional contract that binds us so that like normally I could be like keeping an eye out for better friends or better mates or whatever, but now I have this emotional contract that blinds me from like doing like searching for something better, so that also you have this thing, so we're not both out searching for something better all of the time. And it's just like this strong connection is how I is my cynical way of approaching love. And so it's fun that like the like you have all of these new connections, and then you go, man, everyone just needs to make a bunch of false connections. I need to connect with more people that create false connections in their mind. We need to start a cult of false connections. I just had an epiphany. Not an epiphany, a false pattern that I have recognized in the environment and put way too much emphasis on.
Oh man, what a beautiful cynical way of getting the whole world to love and hold hands, and while at the same time being like, you're still committed? Okay, I'm still committed. Good. Okay, we got it. We got world peace, right? Good.
We have it.
I mean, there's people that also say that, you know, love is the most fundamental like property of the universe, like just the connectivity of is the word for love, and then they say entropy is the opposite of love, where it's like disorganized information, disconnectivity, but it's the dynamic of those two which causes anything to happen at all, because otherwise it would just be nothingness, right?
Yeah, I think that there's a lot to that, and I think that's honing in on something that is more nuanced and complicated than this like love stamp umbrella that we put on it. But certainly it's more challenging to build something, to build a relationship, to build a house, whatever, than it is to destroy it, just by the very nature of the universe and building things and having like a robust structure and having things like stick together in a cohesive way is incredibly difficult in most things, except in ideas. Ideas are like too sturdy, like impossible to get rid of. Like I was just my the editor of the Here We Are podcast, his boss doesn't believe in COVID and just got COVID.
Not you, right? His other boss.
Oh yeah, his other boss. His other boss got COVID without believing in COVID. Got it at like some real estate thing, like meeting that they went to this conference meeting.
Oh, great idea! Real estate conference meeting during pandemic.
Yeah, just like all of the stereotypically like jackass like. My cousin's a realtor and he's a great guy, but I have a outside of him, I have a pretty poor association with the type that gets into realty. And
I used to have a joke about it where I would say that it's no one ever grew up wanting to do that. Man, now I forgot the joke because that wasn't a joke at all. But just oh no, the joke was where you ask someone you haven't seen in a long time like how it's going, and they're like, oh, it's going really great. I'm about to get my real estate license, and then you go, oh well, it's not really going that great, is it, huh?
It is this weird backup plan. It's usually like real pyramid schemey, and it's but regardless, they're also they tend to believe in like meritocracies and like and view like money as like the main indicator of success. So anything that gets money is good, even if it's like a little bit morally, because your morals are based on money. So like that is morality.
And why do they have headshots?
That is there is something about face. There's some research about that. I'm not remembering what. Like, why does the billboard with like, what's my lawyer look like? Ooh, that guy looks like someone that would get me out of a DUI.
Yeah, they look like criminals, and real estate people look like your friend. And then a lawyer, you're like, oh, this guy's a piece of shit. I want to hire this piece of shit on my side to be an even bigger piece of shit than whatever the state is going to do to stop me from harassing my ex-wife.
Real estate is like super vanilla, like my editor's like, yeah, my number one thing, if someone sends in like a resume to get hired for him, first thing he does is look at his social media, and if they have any political stance on anything, automatically disqualified. You need to be like as vanilla as possible. But this guy's super Republican, tells himself he's not. Anyhow, he was like he was like he went to this conference. Everyone was getting COVID. He didn't have symptoms yet, and he got like a quick test, and he's like, it tested negative, so I don't have it. And but like all the people kept on getting it, and then today he finally like started getting symptoms and is now in rough shape. And then he was like, I must have got it some other way. I must have. Why didn't I have symptoms? Why did I have symptoms 3 days after other people had symptoms? I must have got it after the conference. Like, why are you so committed to that idea that you didn't get COVID at this conference, that everyone else got COVID at, that you have to construct some other fucking narrative because you can't hold on to, like, you can't let go of the smallest little idea that like maybe you were wrong about something, which is incredible. I think
it's a decade of cognitive dissonance.
I think that we get I think that social animals, at least humans, I think that certainly humans, because of our communication skills, but I think that we get selected based on the strength of the grip we have on our ideas. Ooh. More than the strength of the ideas.
Yeah.
It's like, whoa, that guy really believes that thing. It's like, yeah, and he is exceptionally wrong. Like, he is really like, do you know, sometimes I'll see some dude with like a yacht, and I'll be that, or like some like motivational speaker or something like that, or or real estate this and that, or salesman, or whatever, like, and I'll be like, wow, that dude got a yacht through this incredible series of deep misunderstandings that like he fully just like really went for. And people are like, well, that guy believes it.
Just so much deception that he's floating on top of.
Whereas like someone listens to like Mike Kaplan talk, who's like really, really smart. I mean, maybe it's a little bit different because Kaplan is like sometimes a little showy with his like linguistics and whatnot. That's like, ooh, but the point is like that qualifying and questioning that is like inherent within what he like. That's how you get smart. That's how you get to the bottom of things, is by like, but if you look at it another way, and if you look at it this way, so that's how you get to like the truth of things. When they look at like the people that best predict the stock market, when they have them talk out their reasoning, like they'll just record every like investor, like talking through 100 different investors talking through their stock picks. And the super forecasters are the ones that go, but if you look at it this way, but then again, and they just have this habit of looking at it in this, because it gives you this like holistic view on things. But socially, we don't select for that trait. We're like, enough already. Just commit to a thing and be super committed.
He knew who he was, and that's who he was, and he stood by who he was his whole life, and that was a real man. Even though he didn't change his opinion since age 7, he knew who he was. He wasn't going to let some virus kill him. Of course, when he contracted the virus, he put up a strong fight, and he continued to not believe in it till the day he died, and that's who he'll be.
There is this determination. This really gets perfectly into this topic, because I wanted our entry point to be a reference back to the last episode that we just touched on this idea of, you were talking about the two sides of the motivational coin.
Yes.
The like sitting back and manifesting, and the like it'll just flow and I just gotta tap into, and the Jocko Williamson like, this is a war. And I think it's just like a spectrum, like in the way that there's like a range of these people are agreeable, these people are disagreeable, most people are like in the middle somewhere. And there's this range, but it's still like, it's not a coin as much as it's like a rainbow, you know?
Except for half the rainbow, which doesn't have a rainbow on it, because you would never catch me dead wearing, let's say, a rainbow shirt.
You wouldn't catch me dead.
That's an actual Jocko Willink quote, and I respect that tremendously, even though I like have rainbow in the name of my company, and I'm always like making rainbow stuff and so on. He shoots everything in black and white. He posts a picture of his watch every morning at 4:13 a.m. where he wakes up to work out, and it's always black and white. His video podcast is black and white, and just like, you would never catch me dead wearing a rainbow shirt.
When he dies, I'm going to dig up his grave, put a rainbow shirt on his corpse, rebury it. No one's ever going to know.
Unfortunately, we're both going to die before him, probably.
I don't know. Testosterone is pretty darn bad on the
That's true.
Old immune system and heart.
And he does eat steak every day. That's another great one, too, where they're like, so what's your diet? And he just goes, steak. Like, what about dinner? Well, steak. Breakfast, steak. Any more questions? Good. That's another motivational video where, have you seen that one? Joe Rogan talks about it all the time, and it's so funny how much he loves it, because his guests will sometimes not be into it, or they'll say like, yeah, I've seen it before. And he's like, Jamie, play the video again. He's like, plays the video. It's like, so you woke up late this morning. Boss called you. You're fired. Good.
New opportunity.
Yeah. Wife left you for your best friend. Good.
Good. Get a new wife. You didn't need that one anyway. And you didn't need that friend. Good. New challenge.
Balls shrank. Don't work anymore. Good. More time to work out, less time to watch porn. It doesn't work at all. Good. More time to spend with your ass.
Type A people that are like, it's also like, it's also like, what you're doing there, Jocko, is positive reframing. Did you just call me a homosexual? We're talking about the same thing here. Settle down, bud.
Yeah, that's
Like, I get it. We're both trying to do the same. So here's something that I want to make well, I always have ideas for art that if I were you, if I had your abilities, I would make, but they're in your style, but not in your tone. Usually I'm darker and more cynical than
Yeah, let's dark it
you
up.
are. Yeah, let's
What you
get
got?
in
Were you
there.
going to pitch some
Life's
ideas?
meaningless. Yeah, so
Yeah, tell me what you got, and then maybe we'll make them or something somewhere along the road.
we don't have to. Maybe fans will.
Oh yeah, maybe they'll make it. Yeah,
but
you guys do it.
Either way, it's a fun thought experiment. Which is it. Last episode we were talking, and this will have to do a lot today with today and what we've been talking about. Last episode we were talking a lot about meaning, and is the idea that there's a meaning just something that you're like that's pushing you rather than like an actual thing that you're going to, like, all of us going for the same thing. And there's a few ways I would conceptualize the way that I look at it. One is, so take a track with like 8 people running on the track. Objectively, granted, these are like this is a subjective sport and everything, and the rules are like technically subjective or whatever, but within the like objective reality of whoever crosses the finish line first is going to get a gold medal. That's the objective reality. And then there's the people in the race, they're all like, some people are visualizing that getting that gold medal at the end, and that like objective goal is what drives them, and that's like a really close model of reality. But other people are envisioning their children, they're doing this for their children, they're doing this for their dad who like raised them, like they lost last year or whatever, but like always coached them, or this next person's doing it to like put food on the table so they don't die, or the other person's doing it because they're like running from something.
That's what David James did. Remember David? Do you know David James, the Austin comic? Very funny guy. He had a joke about running a marathon and realizing like I was running away from my family. And, like that's the only way he was able to do it. He's like running away from his wife.
Yeah,
just gets to endlessly go away from it, and then succumbs to pain and is like, I guess family is fun. Of course he loves his family, it's a joke.
But like so like if you saw through each of their mind's eyes, you would see like a different, it'd be like taking your After You Die book and instead making like a book about purpose. And each of these people is seeing like a different, like riches, or like homelessness that they're running from, or riches that they're running towards. And so first off, it's a lot of like dramatized carrots and sticks. So like when you say like that 2-head of the motivational, like making a vision board is just the carrot compared to the Jocko Williamson stick. Like we're all gonna like have a carrot and a stick if you're riding a donkey. Like do whatever. Like if you're on a donkey, I bet that carrot will work for a while, and then the donkey will stop caring about the carrot. And if you do the stick for a while, it will respond for a while, and then it will just like get numb to the stick. And you probably need a mix of those things.
No, I'd never visualized it like that, but it's 100% that, like not just the rainbow spectrum, but yeah, it's a carrot and a stick behind you, and depending on what day you're on, like yeah, sometimes I really need the carrot, and other days I just have to whoop my ass with a Jocko Willink brand black and white stick.
And that
battle bars or battle maces or whatever. I don't know.
And that's where to me things like when I think about the psychedelic experience or mindfulness or anything else, and what you take away from it is the appreciation of the bouquet, the range of emotions, each of them being something that drives you, or in some cases pumps the brakes when that's necessary. And so to say like everything is love or life is just pain and good, let's overcome it, like both of those things are perfectly valid unless you make dogma out of one of them and then prescribe it to others because it works really well for you. You know, and say everyone needs to use this one system that I have stumbled across that works for my specific genetic makeup and life experience and training and skills and environment that I am in, and the like military training and success or, you know, whatever else. It's like, you know, it's easy for Tony Robbins to be in shape when you have like $1 million trailer that goes around with you everywhere, that has you like injecting you with this and that and taking your measurements and whatnot. So for that guy to like get on a stage and be like, here's what you should do. It's like, well, first you need $1 million to do that.
It's tough because like some of these, I don't know his story specifically. I think he's a rags to riches story that like willed it to himself, and he's old school. Like he had those cassette tapes back in the 80s. So he was doing this before even Abraham Hicks or any of these people. But yeah, it's almost like once you get there, your message is diluted a little bit because it's like, well, yeah, of course you're saying this. You have millions of dollars. And they're like, well, but we got the millions of dollars by working hard. No, you didn't. You got it by selling the books. Or I think about, did we already talk about Buff Kumail? Because Kumail is like so jacked now. And when he posted his first picture, he's like, I just have to say that I wouldn't have been able to do this without Marvel's millions of dollars, trainers, dietitians, cooks, etc., staying on my ass. Even though it is hard work, it's half hard work, half, you know, this system I have in place to make the hard work happen.
That's reasonable.
Yeah, did you see that? I think
no, I haven't, but that's a very smart thing to say to people.
Oh, got you. Oh, you mean like very like well crafted, or
yeah, just like instead of being like, look what I did and you can do it too. It's like, yeah, maybe. Like, okay, and why is that our goal exactly? Anyway, you know, it's,
to say you can do it too.
It's you know, I think that we're like all pretty you know, if you look at like everyone trying to follow Joe Rogan's lead, like, well, okay, what is it? What do we get people in figure fours and stuff? Is that how comedy works? Is that what we like?
What's figure fours?
Oh, it's like a wrestling move.
Okay.
It's like okay. I want to be a comedian first. Learn karate.
Joe Rogan thinks he's so great because he knows karate. Well, tell you what, I know a lot of people that know karate. Okay, not special.
But the thing is like that worked really well for him, mostly because it's authentic to who he is. And it comes from a sense of, like, for him, it might seem like, oh man, that guy has so much discipline to be swinging around kettlebells and stuff like that. But for him, that's like his flow state.
Yes.
That's his comfort zone.
He says
that's
it
like
himself.
what he knows well.
Yeah, he's a literal ape. He has to do that shit all day.
He has a natural predisposition to doing that, and terrific. I mean, I think it's phenomenal that the dude was like into martial arts and then found a way to, you know, I'm into science. I found a way to blend comedy and science together. I would love for it to be successful and for people to like shit on. Like, oh, that guy just talks about insect dicks and everyone likes it, you know. But the thing is like the blind following of like, oh, okay, and then I go to a shooting range and I shoot a bunch of stuff, and then that's how you get followers. It's like, maybe this 15 minutes you do, and I have no doubt that it will serve Joe Rogan well for the rest of his life. but like that doesn't, you're looking at, it's the survivorship bias. You're seeing the finished product. You're not seeing like the like man show that could have like been the end of his career, or the Girls Gone Wild that definitely could have been the end of his career.
Oh, he was on Girls Gone Wild?
Yeah, and then you're,
oh, that's so funny.
And then you're not seeing like the news radio thing that like everyone forgot about, but was like a kind of a fun bit part that elevated him a little bit.
News
that
radio
got him
was
this,
awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, and
he was great in it too.
And then to just happen to be there when like MMA takes off, and he's like this all, you know, accomplished, like good intelligent fairly well-spoken comedian, and like to get these announcer jobs and stuff when it's on the ground floor. Like I have a uncle-in-law or whatever, that his
So
family,
a stranger.
yeah, his family, my my aunt married his family way back when had this little food distribution company, and just happened to work like do like distribution for this little company called Walmart. And when Walmart blew up, they're just like, okay, now we're one of the 100 richest people in the world just because of Walmart, you know. So it's like this culmination of all of these other things that people don't see. People just see like the finished product of like the Joe Rogan experience is what's successful. So therefore, if you want to be successful in comedy, what you do is you have a podcast where you like shoot guns and like do MMA stuff, and like sometimes have kind of like white supremacists to hear them out, and like no, that worked because there was like a niche that now every other comic's gonna go like try to chase after that, and then there's going to be like the next thing, you know, after COVID, people might be like, turns out science is really useful, and who knew, very interesting. And then like me and David Huntsberger and like Matt Kirshen and stuff just like skyrocket from like an unknown comedian, you know, just because we happen to be there and happen to have these skills. And if that happens, every agent in the business is going to be like, if you become the biggest comic out there, every agent in the business is going to be like, have you seen that Ramin Nazer? He's what have you ever like thought about drawing like rainbowy like things about like little like kind of pep talky, like kind of sometimes downers, but like kind of motivationally, kind of like have you ever thought about doing that style of comedy? Like,
I love agent and manager talk. Not my manager, she's really good, but in the past, like other people I've had where they're just like, well, did you have a Bernie meme that did well today? Game show ideas. Game shows are really in right now, and then the next day they're so over it.
So many game shows, and now that ship has sailed. That was like 5 years ago. That was, I couldn't five to like especially 7 years ago, I couldn't. I just got sick of pitching things, because every time I'd go in and I'd be like, oh, I kind of want to be like Mike Rowe of academia. Like, instead of dirty jobs, show like the kind of blue collar side of science, of like these aren't like these these aren't these like ivory tower like mad scientists you're picturing in your mind. These are just humans that go in and do like this interesting thing for 8 hours a day or whatever, and like show their labs and stuff like that. People would always be like, oh, is there like points? Is there like, are there prizes and stuff? What the fuck are you talking about? No, there's not prize.
Yeah, they want to transform it into the other thing, even though they've seen it work in another context.
But then if my thing takes off, someone will come in and picture a great fucking game show idea, and people will be like, but what if it's like more real and authentic? And everyone's just following this thing. So that's one thing, is like, don't suppose that you see someone successful, that's your path.
Yeah. Wouldn't it be great if we had full transparency, which we kind of do, but you have to do research. But if we saw all the losses, you see it with boxing, I'm pretty sure. Like you can look at someone's Wikipedia and you see like W, L, 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 W. So you see like their win and loss record. Whereas with famous people, are like, oh, they did a famous thing and then they became successful when.
Yeah. And plus it's like,
more.
There might have only been 2 spots, like, yeah, you can try to be an astronaut, but there's 8 spots on that ship. Plain and simple. They're not building more seats for the fucking ship. They're eliminating seats.
Oh yeah, and if you don't have perfect vision, you're already out. You gotta be a jock nerd to be an astronaut. Like it's not even you have to be a nerd. You have to be an in shape, good genes nerd. I'm pretty sure. I don't know if it's still the case, but I remember hearing like with perfect vision and stuff, it's required.
Well, that's part of where they screwed up on. I mean, it screwed up on a lot of reason for that. What was the one in like the
Challenger? Yeah, they blew those assholes up.
The late 80s. They're like, what if a grade school teacher taught a class from space? Let's train this lady how to be an astronaut. And not that it wasn't her fault, it was engineers' fault.
She spilled Dr. Pepper all over the command console. Well, today class, first I'm gonna have a little sip of my
the apple that some kid gave her.
So the trick to long division is you want to start with the right side.
She snuck an apple in her purse. It was like, definitely no fruit on this, whatever you do. We've accounted for every like pound. And then like the apple rolls out, gets into some tube.
Do you know what it was? Like, I know we could look it up or something, but was
it was an O-ring.
It was what?
It was an O-ring that they were warning everyone about.
O-ring?
Yeah, there was a
for rockets.
Yeah, there was just this component in this part that they had tests. I don't remember exactly what happened, but there was something about weather conditions. It had been tested a few times, and there's varying weather conditions where it was they were seeing a problem with this over, and they were letting everyone know. But they had at the time NASA was so. There's this good book called The Folly of Fools that's all about the evolution of self-deception, and it uses that example as a case study of it was a lot of like politics of it was basically a space parade they were trying to show, and there was a lot of pressure on everybody. Like people were losing interest in space. It's like the moon was like the best thing that ever happened. It's like what 9/11 did to the news. 9/11 is like, okay, now we need 3 channels 24/7, and then like eventually people are like, yeah, all right, 9/11,
was that the birth
we get
event?
it.
I guess so. The 24-hour news cycle, was that born on 9/11, and thus
basically
kind of made the Daily Show pop?
Yeah,
the Daily Show was the right thing at the right time, and it was really good, and the right people and stuff. But
yeah, exactly. So much of it is like right time, right, and being and having talent.
And the Challenger thing is a great thing to have in this episode, because it's a nice metaphor for the motivation of like, we're going into space, but you didn't really figure out your internal shit well enough. So like before you even leave lower orbit, your math teacher has already fucked you over.
Everyone poo-pooing it was, or everyone trying to sound the alarms about these O-rings was kind of marginalized, told not to. They were suppressed in a lot of ways.
Are they on record, or is it all internal?
Yeah, they were on record, and
that's got to feel good and bad.
Yeah, I mean the same stuff happened with COVID in a lot of ways. There's a lot of there's a lot of And the same thing happened again with the financial crisis in '08,
2008, yeah.
where so Elizabeth Warren, who people hate for whatever reason now, I guess, is
She's electable. She is electable. She's electable if we elect her and if we do her dance. Do the Elizabeth Warren dance?
I haven't seen that. I was just a fan because she was in a documentary called Maxed Out that was warning people about what would happen, and it came out a couple years before the financial collapse and was recorded even like a couple years before that and predicted it like to the T, like exactly everything that was going to happen.
Oh, that's wild.
And she would get hired to like go to these financial institutions. These like banks would hire her because she like knew a ton about economics, to like tell them how they can like make money and whatnot. And she would like give speeches about, here's like this blind spot you guys have, and here's this way that you can mitigate your risk. And they'd be like, no.
Imagine being at the level of knowing more than the banks and being invited to go talk to them as opposed to try to call them to get you to reverse an overdraft fee.
Well, in all these cases, it was just the human need for cheerleading. It's the like, we don't want to, it's the killing the messenger. It's the we just want, let's just all stay positive here. In each of those cases, there's a zillion more cases where people could have been more positive and been successful in life and hated themselves or gave up for no reason, and we don't hear about those cases too. So I don't mean to like shit on positivity. But it is valuable to know that sometimes, and I think COVID's a great example of this, sometimes it's more important to us for our like wishful thinking ideal vision in our mind to remain intact than for objective reality to like people would rather believe they aren't getting going to get COVID than to do some like very simple little precautionary things to actually avoid getting
why not
COVID.
do both? Like I do both. I don't think I'm gonna get it. I genuinely don't think I'm gonna get it, and I also don't do anything that would make me get it. Same.
And so this is like, you could apply this to so many things. Challenger, financial crisis, that's, I mean, I do think that like that was a lot of what people responded to with Trump stuff was just like unbridled, like, it's all gonna be terrific based on nothing at all. And like, this Fauci guy is a bit of a naysayer, isn't he? Let's take away his platform. I'll be giving the science talks from here on out. I'm gonna wave a dementia test around like it's a PhD in immunology. And then start trying to say the like couple of it must have been like, some people are like, well, we're trying this hydrochloroquine or whatever, and then he'd be like, what's that word? And then just like say it to himself enough times before he'd be like, people are gonna love the sound of that.
Hydroxychloroquine. It sounds disinfecting. It sounds futuristic. It's got hydration, and it's got chlorine, queen, like Yas Queen. It's like, it's got it all. Hydroxychloroquine. I haven't heard about that for a while. I remember there was like some people that were really into it. It's like, oh, the government is suppressing that it's curing everyone. But now it's a year later, and I think we would have heard if it's, I mean, maybe it does work in like 5% or 1% of certain types of, why even put percentages on
they know it doesn't work if you have COVID. They don't know for sure if it's like, if it's something that is potentially like protective. But that was like the last time I checked but it was like the reason why they don't know for sure is because there wasn't even cause to explore that as a possibility because it's like a waste of time. There was no evidence to show that it might do something like that.
What's it for? It's like for malaria, right? I mean, not just for malaria. I just know that you get that before you get malaria or when you go to Africa or something to do with Africa.
I don't yeah.
Have you heard Tim Dillon's rant about Fauci and how, like, you know, with people like Fauci and Cuomo, like, we don't want Italians leading our cities and our health. We need a Jew or an Asian. That's going to give people comfort. Like, and then he makes fun of himself. Like, yeah, you don't want Italians or Irish. We're not for that. We're good at other things, like a good sauce or or a good song that you sing while drunk.
Yeah. Oh, here's the other some other art regarding the search for meaning and stuff. Another one was and it could be, so the dark version of the thing. So one version is just like 8 people on a track, like all of them seeing a different thing that they're going toward or like avoiding or whatever. But like objectively, they're all on the exact same track, like running toward the same like objective thing. The other version of that, like the cynical version of that, is a bunch of people, like a bunch of things where a bunch of people running, like wearing a VR, and they're running like towards a cliff. And they're all like, what are you running toward? And then one's like, I'm running toward money. And I'm like, what are you running towards? Have you seen that scene in Westworld where they like run off? Did you watch?
Oh yeah,
Westworld?
all of it. I'm just trying to remember what scene you're talking about.
They like upload them into, it's in like season 2,
and then their body falls into the cliff as their digital self goes into the promised land, Heaven Valley, and then their actual body just like falls to doom.
Yeah. And then the other kind of version in my head that articulates things is like that there's no finish line, there's only a finish. So it's like it's just a track, there's no finish line on it. And there's just like a baby, like a middle-aged person, like an old person or whatever. It's just like different stages of being on the same
like that
track. There's also a different version of it that could be like a Where's Waldo, where it's like a bunch of people on a track and it's just like showing how like one's like in an explosion, one's like one just keels over, one, but the first one's probably better.
Yeah, the first one I liked a lot.
And but yeah, so that's what I was thinking from our last episode talking about purpose. And yeah, I forget where I was going with that. But
purpose, meaning, motivation. Motivation is where we get to purpose, which doesn't exist either. All of these are non-tangible things that we kind of try to summon up using various tools that have varying degrees of success depending on what state we're in that moment. So it's like, I'm going to use the motivation, which is unreliable, to get to the purpose, which is also unreliable. But it's still, it's come on, we're doing it today. And it's tough because when you try to motivate yourself, like you're giving instructions to a version of you that is different. So the version of me that writes down this to-do list for tomorrow me to do, tomorrow me may not give a shit about this me. Hopefully half of it. Hopefully that one gives half a shit. So half of the to-do list gets done. But man, I used to do that with music a lot. Like you write a little a tune and a lyric to go with it. You're like, this is so good. And then tomorrow me looks at it, I'm like, you cheesy, stupid. Right. I will never record this. I'm ripping this up. And yesterday it was the most important thing in the world to me. So there you go.
Yeah, well, there's also like the approach, the having of the idea is like, you also can't revisit an idea in the form that it originated in, because when you go back to retrieve an idea, you're now a person that already knows that idea, that already has experience with that idea. You can never be that person having that idea for the first time ever again. So that idea will never be that. It will always be a different idea, which is an idea of the original idea that you had that's like slightly revised each time.
It reminds me of when Michael Garfield would talk about some, it's either his idea or he's quoting some sci-fi author about like going back in time. You can never actually go back in time because as soon as you materialize there, you are that version or something. Like your brain can only exist in
Yeah.
in the now. It can't send the future one back to the now. Whatever. That's a terrible way of explaining it. That's worth nothing. Some statements are worth like 2 out of 10. Sometimes they're just 0. Like where it was just some words put together.
You don't have Michael Garfield's like insane ability to recall quotes and remember the exact like name of the person and everything. He has like a
Pierre Teilhard de Chardin says, where complexity is not just found structurally in where paradoxes meet at the equinox, but rather where we find ourselves coincide.
He's great. It's funny the many different ways that you can like articulate the same kind of concepts in the different ways that we do it. That is a 1-star statement. A lot of 1-star statements here. Did you just freeze on me? Hello, everybody. We're taking a short break for technical difficulties, brought to you by Remote Communications. Remote Communications, providing things that would be unfathomable 200 years ago. If you could just pop up on someone's wall or something like that from across the globe, it would be like some incomprehensible magic. And now, if the slightest thing goes wrong in any way, it's just the single most irritating. Where we left off, we're going to get to we're establishing, is there even a point to any of these things? And I think that for purposes moving forward, for now, until we have a more refined view of life, I think at least for me, it's good enough to say that we've established that it's harder but better to like build something and have like a stable structure than to be falling apart. If we can.
I think just a little bit.
So in moving toward that, here's a couple of things that I was going to read off like this list of things, but I'll just riff.
Just any things? Just random things?
No.
Car, Apple.
Here's what I just thought we could talk about, what the big like no-nos are for New Year's resolutions. And
rape, incest.
Basically the usual. I get the sense that one of the big problems is that people have a resolution, like it puts so much pressure on, like instead of saying I'm going to try this new thing or whatever, or I'm going to have this goal, you have like, I'm going to resolve. It's like, I'm going to change the very structure of my being. You know, like I'm going to change my identity like tomorrow. And I think that's a big part of where, but what academics say, so this is this is kind of generalizing over the many conversations that I've had on like similar subjects. Basically, what goes wrong is that the first mistake that people do is they try to do too many things all at once. Like, all right, here's what I'm going to do this year or tomorrow or whatever. I'm going to do these 10 things. Like you have that good piece of art that's like, try to do 10 things and accomplish none. Try to do one thing and accomplish 10.
Yeah, exactly.
Or whatever. And that's too many things. And then too ambitious of goals. Like this year, I'm going to be a millionaire. Like, well, maybe get out of debt first would be a good...
Yeah, be a zero air first. Yeah. Be a not negative air.
And then, so the other thing is, so those are like kind of easy. Like everyone kind of probably intuitively has picked up on that from the past. Like, oh yeah, I put too much on the plate and it doesn't work out, or maybe I hate myself for it or whatever.
Easy to recognize, but not easy to overcome for sure.
Yeah. And then the one that's harder to recognize that everyone seems to do and be happy to like encourage. Like if I tell you, hey, Ramin, I'm going to change these 10 things about myself starting tomorrow, you might like most people might be like, why don't you try one or two of those things starting tomorrow and like see how that goes first. I bet you'll have a higher rate of success. But the one that most people will be is that most people make the mistake of making a goal that's too vague. So they say like next year I'm going to be more loving or like next year.
That's what happened during the riots or the protest riots, whatever you want to call them, during the summer, where all the celebrities are like, racism must stop. We will be better. I will be better.
And
just be better.
That actually was well, there was one quote that I liked, which was fail better. That makes more sense to me.
I like that.
Than just be better. But because it's like, hey, you're going to fail and like get slightly better at things and dust yourself, sure. But the idea of just to say like, next year I'm getting organized. Like that's something that everyone would be like, yeah, good for you, get organized. But it's too vague. What you want is really like specific, measurable goals. And you also want them to be small, incremental gains. So you might say like, I want to save money. Next year's my year. Next month, that's when I'm going to start saving money. That, sounds great, but it won't actually accomplish the thing as much as saying, all right, next month I'm going to start saving 0.5% more of my paycheck and put it in an account. And then the month after that, I'm going to save 0.5% more. So now I'm at 1%. The month after that, 1.5%. The month after that, 2%. And then a year goes by and you're saving 6%. Now, to the average person, when they're setting like a New Year's resolution, they're like, well, that's just not going to cut it. Like, I'm in dire straits. Like, I got to start saving like 20% now. Well, if you actually did that, that would be great, but you're not going to. And not only that, but you're peaking too early and then you're plateauing, which would be great if it worked. Like if you were just like, I'm going to save 6% starting January 1st and just keep that. You're right that if you actually stuck to that, you would save more money than working your way up to that 6%. But there's there's this idea of these small incremental gains is, so if you have a rat in a lab and you teach the rat, have I talked about this on
You've talked about rats, but I don't know if you're talking about the specific rat.
the like motivation?
No, tell me about it. I don't think so.
So this is you're going to teach a rat to hit a lever when a light goes on. So all that you do, it's in a cage, a light goes on, rats are curious, it's sniffing around, it stumbles on this lever. When it does that, a reward comes out. It eats the reward, and if you have like a little MRI, like a little neural helmet, so you know what's going on in its brain a little bit, what regions are lighting up, you do that, and dopamine floods the system when it eats the reward. It's dopamine is like, it just shoots through the roof. And so at first they're like, okay, so dopamine's the reward, that's like the feel good thing. But then something counterintuitive happens, but makes a whole lot of sense once you know it, which is, once the rat through time, which doesn't take that long, starts to associate, like, oh, the light comes on, and then when I hit this lever, the reward comes out, then dopamine spikes when the light comes on. Dopamine actually is the motivator. Dopamine goes, ooh, I know what to do here. I hit this lever, and then I go and I get that reward. And so now you're motivated. But now if you give the reward to it 100% of the time, it hits the lever and it gets this one reward, it'll start getting complacent with life. It'll like, well, I'll get to that lever when I get to that lever. I'm going to get the reward either way. This explains like many people's work performance. You get real excited when you first get the job, and then after a while it's like, yeah, I'll get to it, mail it in. And then if you stop giving it the reward, it will give up, and it will be like, what's the point in hitting some dumb lever anyway if I'm not getting paid to do it? An interesting thing is, if you give it these intermittent rewards, like 50% of the time you give it a reward, it actually has twice the dopamine goes off when that light comes on. It's twice as motivated for half the chance of getting the reward. This is why gambling is such an issue for people. This is like what most video games.
This is what QAnon was also said about. It was said about QAnon, because so many of those Q drops were false. Like, it didn't happen that way, but some of them did. And I don't know which ones didn't happen and which ones did happen. But the fact that it only paid off sometimes made people more addicted. I guess the people that are into that to begin with.
Yeah.
So if it was true, it would have caught on less if all of the drops were true, as opposed to if only some of them were true.
That's what conspiracy theorists are doing too, is like sifting for gold, because some people will get that like nugget because they're like super vigilant. They're going to find that little like bit of corruption before anyone else, and then be like, I was the hipster to the like Epstein, this and that. And so you get to be like, I told you, but
we love "I told you so," don't we? It doesn't even feel that good, but so many people are basing their whole identity around "I told you so."
Yeah, I've been indulging in it a little bit with COVID, but COVID's like, because it's an ongoing thing, it's not like 9/11, where like if 9/11 happens, you go like, see, I told you, these terrorists.
Oh, if it was every day, every day would be funny.
But like, if it just kept on happening, it's like, guys, like, how many buildings need to be hit by a plane before we start doing something about this? What the fuck? Then it's like a little more called for, is the story that I tell myself.
Yeah.
But forget intermittent rewards for a second and just think about the complacency of that reward. Here's what here's the power of small incremental gains and the worry of like the jackpots or whatever. Or
The most boring book title ever, but has lots of wisdom. The power of incremental gains.
Yeah. So if you once that rat's dopamine starts going down because it's just getting the one reward each day, you just give it 2. Then like when it gets that reward, dopamine shoots up the first time, and then next time it's super motivated again. But then it just like goes back to baseline, and so then you gave it 3, then you give it 4, now you give it 5 reward. You're just giving it raises basically, and you are keeping it motivated. But then when it gets to baseline and at 5, like that first time that it gets 5 rewards feels no better than the first time it got 1 reward. And that baseline, once you're making 5 treats a lever push, that feels the exact same that making 1 treat a lever push did. And it's just about you just can't plateau. You just can't stay there. And then like say you get to like 10. So as long as you keep on like adding 1 and making a little improvement each time, it will stay just as motivated and just on top of it. But then say you get to 10, if one day you give it 5, that rat's just gonna be like laying in the corner, just horribly depressed, wondering how the world is just falling apart and what it's done wrong to deserve this, even though 5 is 5 times more than that 1 that was once very exciting. But because everything's so based on context, like so much of what we've been talking about, like in the last episode, so much of meaning is based on context dependence. 5 compared to the 10 you were getting is a real indicator that something is going horribly wrong in your life.
It's the 1 banana phenomenon, like with the chimps, when you give them 1 banana, they're very happy, or you give them 5, they're very happy. But if you give them 100, more than they can eat in a single day, but you take away 1 of them, they like lose their whole mind and they attack you. You were their friend for decades before that. They'll rip your balls off. They'll rip your face off because you took off 1 banana from the 100 that you just gave them, that they didn't earn, they didn't know about or anything.
And by the way, for listeners, that's 2 episodes in a row that we've talked about chimps ripping your face and balls off. But that's what they do. A lot of people don't know that. Like, if they find, chimps are always like patrolling, and any like primate researcher or whatever that finds some poor chimp that was like out scavenging on its own from some other tribe, and some like tribe of chimps like out patrolling stumbled upon it, always missing its testicles and face.
Oh damn! They just cut out middle management. They just go straight for like, yeah. They're not like jabbing you in the gut and slapping your face. They're just like, this is the end of this genetic line now, and whatever happens to the end of this being, it's probably gonna die off anyway. I'm more afraid of chimps than anything, like more than a big snake or shark.
Really?
Like something about them, just how cute they are in relation to how quick they are, and like the grabbiness of it, and they're just the way they go like that, like does something like deep in you, like in not like scared in the like don't show me, just like the way it elicits fear. I remember watching the new Planet of the Apes where they're taking over the city and there's just hundreds of them going like that. Just it taps into something deep. They're scary little guys,
but
scary
cute.
big guys.
On the other end of it, if you're a chimp researcher and like you teach a chimp like some primitive like sign language, as soon as it sees you, it will like scratch its belly for the sign to tickle me, and then if you tickle the chimp, it'll be like. like it's so out of control, like it can't handle it. It'll be like slapping your hand away and stuff. Like it it just loses it, and then as soon it's like out of breath, and then as soon as it recovers and gets its breath back, it's like, tickle me. Like, right, just as soon as it's got just adorable. But
yeah, and bonobos are the opposite. They'll just like have polyamory with you.
yeah, they will try to bang you. And dolphins. But
Oh, for sure.
So oh, and the other thing, remember that chimp that like ripped the lady's face off, and then the lady got a new face or whatever?
Wasn't that they're the guy that brought a cake? I might even be quoting this directly from Joe Rogan podcast, where some he brought a cake to celebrate the chimp's birthday made of bananas or whatever, and then the other chimps saw that they weren't getting any cake, and then they ripped his face and balls off. So he brought a present, not paying attention to who he's neglecting, and since he raised its status, like the lower status apes.
Wow. Yeah.
Tore his balls
you never
off.
know.
Tore them straight off.
But when the chimp ripped the face off of the lady, and they called the cops, and the thing was like out of control, it chased down the cop, and then the cop like jumped in its car, and then the chimp just opened the door because the dude like forgot that it's a fucking chimp that knows how shit works. So
it's got thumbs. It's got more thumbs than you do. It can open it with its foot. Do you think Mike Rowe could have done what he did if his name wasn't Mike Rowe? Like if his name was Ari Leibowitz or something? Like I don't think he would have been Mike Rowe. Something about that name just screams like, all right, here we go. We're going in the sewer now, and we're going to be real. And you should not pursue your dreams. You should get a welding degree. Welders are paid $250,000 a year. They work 2 months out of the year, and they get the most pussy, which I love.
Well, that's the other thing about dreams and as a motivator, because these are, the secret stuff or whatever, and these visualization things, like they do work in a lot of ways. You can, if you like, I like thinking about this of, just like the track stuff. If like the dude thinks about all the pussy or whatever he's gonna get if he crosses that finish line, that's a motivator as well. But think about like if I'm jerking it, like
which you are
I can
right now,
which I am right now, I can picture I can picture a naked woman, a figment of my imagination, and that will cause a physiological change, like a state of arousal in my body. And then if I picture two, that will like put it over the top. Like it was a figment of imagination. And then I just added another figment of imagination. And then my body was like, whoa, like that's like, how does that even work? I don't even understand how that, like, adding like some weird little thing to like the mind's eye and the simulation, like how it like how it's causing some sort of
and
regulation.
It's going all day, and we can kind of like, we can't choose what thoughts are like. We can't choose that there is thoughts. The thoughts are there regardless of how much we meditate. There's always going to just be that thought river, but we get to choose what direction we aim our attention. And so it's funny that most of the time it's bullshit, but sometimes it's like, oh, what if I imagined two? Oh, what if I imagined good things instead of catastrophizing how it could go wrong? And then you like take a vacation into fantasy land as opposed to catastrophe land. But yeah, it's funny how
it's just shifting the spotlight of consciousness.
Exactly.
Like you can do a gratitude journal, or I was doing a cognitive bias journal, which is like the opposite of a gratitude journal, which
what do you got on there? What's some of the entries?
It was journaling everything that I did wrong in a given day.
I kind of like that. I've never sat down and done that. That's actually an interesting exercise. Like
everything that I was wrong about.
Like everything right down to like how you positioned your ass on the toilet to where you applied the shampoo and everything.
Yeah, more like philosophical things or so it's much in the way that, so what a gratitude journal is meant to do, like you write the things that you're grateful for at the end of the day, and that like unbeknownst to most people, what that's doing is that's creating a job for the subconscious. Can you do some monkey mind impressions for me? That's, you're giving it a task, and so it's going to be like working on that task while you're not consciously aware of it through the day, because monkey mind knows that it has to do this thing at the end of the day. So you're going to have an eye out for things to be grateful for, because you have to do this stupid pain in the ass thing at the end of the day of listing the things that you're grateful for. So you have like this gratitude colored lens on life. So it's no different than if I was like, hey, keep an eye out for the color orange. You'll spot orange everywhere, even though there's hardly any orange in your environment. Like 99.9% of your environment is not orange, but you will spot orange like obsessively.
Or angel number synchronicities, things like that, where you're like, you get obsessed with, oh, I caught the clock at 1111. Oh shit, I did it again. Yeah. You look for it. Which those can be creepy sometimes, I will admit. But yeah, the orange thing, that's interesting. I'd never done it the way in which you plan to do it at the end of the day. Whenever I've attempted a gratitude journal, it's been, oh, I'll do this now. And then you sit down at the end of the day, having not thought about it earlier, having not given your subconscious that monkey mind homework, and just and like writing stuff down until you get tired of it, and you're like, okay, I'm good. I'm happy that there's electricity and I'm not, my liver is not failing or whatever.
Right. I'll see if I can't find where I put this document. I'm grateful my liver isn't failing. That's a good one.
There's some people that are like, just their body is, because I realize I don't have the addiction disease, like, you know, the people that, well, I can't touch another drop of alcohol, I can't be in the room with that, like the people that really have that going. I don't have that with anything. I don't need cigarettes or
obsessive.
alcohol or pills or anything like that.
I'm
and that's like what some people are working towards. That's like their end of life goal. If they could just not be an addict anymore, that's just all they want. And then some people just like, oh, you need that? No, I don't need a drink. I'm good. Oh, sure, I'll take a sip of it. Okay, yeah. Yeah, so that's a big gratitude one. Just having baseline, your shit is not breaking and your mind is not a haunted house, which it is a little bit of a haunted house sometimes, but not.
Oh yeah.
But not like the way in, you know, the Linkin Park guy. I'm not screaming about, in the end it doesn't even matter, and then he kills himself. I mean, that's not exactly how it went. There was a lot that happened in between him thinking that song and hanging himself. Same with Chris Cornell, but man, that's got to be some, those guys that have it all, like have all the money and adoration and that sort of thing, and they still hang themselves. That's quite a mental pickle.
Yeah, so that's exactly, so here's what that's like what you don't want to do. Like you don't want to reach the top and like plateau, because that's the other thing is, say these drives that you have to like, ooh, I can picture two women and oh my god, like, or I can
better throw my uncle in there to take it down a notch.
or I can picture like getting an hour comedy special, and that will drive me to like sacrifice everything else for this tunnel vision of doing. And then like you get to that thing, you get to like that three-way or whatever else, and you go like, oh, this wasn't the story that I told myself that it would be. And then you find out everything that you were driving for, everything that pushed you was like not what you had built it up to be in your mind. Yeah. This is actually like
why would Shane kill himself? His 3-way comedy hour special was so good, and it concluded with an actual 3-way, and it looked like he was having a good time, and it was on HBO, so they could show everything. But yeah, I guess what he was saying on his podcast was true. He shouldn't have put all his eggs in that 3-way hour comedy special basket.
And that is I would rather I would like to live a long, fulfilling life, but I would also like the idea of just like the petering out at the end. No thanks.
I like the David Bowie method. I think he did a good job with that. He got cancer. Yeah. He made a brilliant piece of art, like kind of around that experience, not only about that experience. He's thrown in a lot of esoteric symbolism and stuff like that. So all of it basically, but it wasn't just like, please buy my Ziggy Stardust records and keep me alive. No, he just gracefully like blinked out.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I mean, I guess here's another piece of art. There's a guy at the base of the mountain. There's the guy on the peak of the mountain, and there's the guy at the end of the mountain, and you're always all three of those at once, like in your mind's eye. At least if you've peaked a mountain, then you can imagine that third guy. Before that, you're just like, that guy on top, that's the guy. But then once you've had that, then you see like, oh, fulfillment is this reward. There's like I think mountaineers call it secondary fun, where like the actual mountaineering is a huge pain in the ass, and then you get done with it and you're like, that's awesome.
That reminds me of like Patrice O'Neill had a joke about how like he likes beating off more than sex. He's like, oh, I just like sex is like a thing to beat off to later, or something to that nature. He's like, oh, because I'm a mess naked, man. And it's just work, and like I'd rather just reflect on it or something like that. I might be butchering the bit, but and also there's a Adam Carolla bit to the same note where he's like, well, yeah, sex is great, it's just not the real thing. But I guess that's their philosophy. I don't think most people would agree with that.
Yeah,
it is just a goof.
Sex is a lot of different things in a lot of different contexts. And
here to talk about that is Dr. Christopher Ryan. Well, it's important that we're engaged in sexual intercourse at least 14 hours a day because we share genetic traits with bonobos who, in fact, unlike chimps, are engaged in orgies 24 hours a day. So I like to have sex in my car, in my truck, with my students' parents, and it's like waves crashing against the rocks. It's just relaxing to hear people have sex. I met a girl in a bar. I said, hey, do you want to come home and have a 3-way with me and my friend Greg? So Greg starts, going at it, and I'm just kind of lighting a joint in the back, and, it's just fun. Thanks for having me on. I don't even remember if that's what he sounds like, but
for having me on.
I just love that he's the sex guy, and I know he doesn't want to be that anymore, and he's branching out, but just like he's like always
that bonobo thing was too juicy, and it's because it also like didn't really entirely match the reality of bonobos' behaviors. Which
You're
is
talking about
also why it was,
sex at dawn.
yeah, and there was other things where it was just like, dude, you're a swinger. We get it. There's like confirmation bias here. Like the idea that guys. So the whole book is like, look, clearly we're supposed to be banging all the time. Look how popular porn is. This is clearly this instinct of ours. Forgets to mention that 95% of porn is viewed by dudes, and or 90% or something like that. Like of the, not that women don't watch porn, just that guys watch it way more, like way more videos. And then so this is because you watch porn, this is evidence that like promiscuity is our natural state of being. So this is like this phenotypic effect that's showing us a mirror into ourselves. However, and then like goes on to basically say, and the reason why women don't get this is because they've been brainwashed by movies to think that there's like a Prince Charming that's they're going to spend the rest of their life. Like, okay, wait a second. So you're fucking pool boy going to the model's apartment and banging 5 of her friends is a version of reality that we should all be striving for. Knight in shining armor, complete nonsense brainwashing that these poor women are duped by.
Have you talked to him, or have you talked to academics who've, like, I don't know, presented counterpoints or something?
Yeah,
because I know I'm not fit to carry his book bag. Like I love to just goof on people, but when it comes to actually like refuting their ideas, I'm like, I don't even know what a phenotype is.
Yeah, you could carry his book bag. I know what a phenotype is because it's a very specific term, like applicable to evolution, which is something that I obsess over, and I still can barely tell you what a phenotype is, which is basically the expression of genes. So genes might predispose you to a behavior, and then the phenotype is the behavior that those genes then express. So it's like a little like less tangible than like genes, which are like a physical thing that you can like touch and examine. The like society could be argued as like a phenotypic effect, like cars are like a phenotype of like our need to like move or whatever else. It could be argued. But yeah, anyway, he, like, people that study bonobos are like, well, that sucks that this asshole's the bonobo guy. He doesn't know bonobos.
Yeah, these things hardly fuck. I've got 6 of them in my lab.
They beg. There was a lot of truth, and he made a lot of good points in his book. And also, you have to know that he's a swinger and was making a lot of swinger biased argument, which is fine.
Yeah,
make your case.
And also, it's like that type of behavior we might be set up for physiologically, but the way society is right now, like, it's just incompatible with it. Like the same way that we're, I don't know, maybe physiologically set up to eat raw meat or something, and we have like the canines. It's like, no, look at our canines. We're supposed to be eating that. It's like, well, slow down. A lot has happened since the hunter-gatherer days. Like, we've got to adjust society. And
yeah, there was many of our ancestors would do persistence hunting in Africa. Persistence hunting is you have like a spear, right? And you see like an elk, and you and your buddies, in the heat you got to do it in the heat of the day when it's its hottest. You're not gonna ever be like faster than that elk or what's in the
gazelle.
Gazelle, yeah. You're not gonna be faster than the gazelle. Is so much faster than you. But if you just go at a pace after it, humans are, I think, the only mammal that sweats, so we can cool ourselves.
So we're the best distance runner on the planet, right?
Yeah, we're the best distance runner on the planet by a long shot. And and for animals to cool themselves, they need to stop and pant. There's also something there's something about the way that most mammals are set up is when they're running on their four legs, when they're sprinting, it compresses their abdomen and lungs in a way that diminishes their capacity. Like a cheetah can run faster than anything on the planet for about 2 minutes, and then after that it's nap time. And so you just for like 4 hours just trot after this gazelle. Sometimes you lose sight of it and you gotta like look for what twigs it been. And you can see video of this. 4 hours just in a loincloth with a spear in the heat of the African sun, as hot as, like, the hotter the better. And then after 4 hours, the thing will collapse and then you just stab it. And you could argue that that's a much more natural state of being than us sitting here communicating on the internet. So, you want to go back, have at it. You want to go and persistence hunt a gazelle? All right.
Anything for polyamory.
Let me get my camera started so I can watch you do this. So it's the human genome has equipped us with such a flexible set of tools that, once again, like context dependency, we can activate these different preferences and everything else when the environment suits it.
Yeah. And did you ever, I don't think you did. Did you ever get into polyamory or ever even consider it? Because myself, I felt as a straight male, it's like, even with all of the academic research at your disposal, even if you could recite it all, it doesn't matter. It's just not, it's not sellable. It's sellable, I think, if your partner is into it and wants to spearhead that thing. But also from a time perspective, it's like, where would you even have the time? You would be splitting yourself so thin. But
well, some people just go to like a sex club or something like that.
Probably.
But yeah, no, I haven't. I've wanted to. Like, I want to see what all the fuss is about. Everyone that I talk to that's had a three-way is like, I don't know.
I always think about, like, there's probably moments of it where you're just in the bathroom or something, like one of you has to pee while the other two don't, and they're just going at it, and you're just like washing your hands, like, oh, this is kind of interesting.
I used to, when talking about, so this stuff about setting goals, and I sometimes do material about this, and this is like based in a lot of truth, but it's about, I try to warn people against accomplishing their dreams or like what it feels like when dreams happen. That's what they tell you, to pursue your dreams. They don't tell you what to do after you've accomplished them.
That guy at the end of the mountain doesn't exist. Yeah.
They just assume that you're not going to. Like they just point to the sky and be like, you could make it all the way up there if you believed in yourself enough. They don't expect people to be like, all right. Because you gotta be fucking crazy. But once you get to the top, it's like, oh, okay, yeah, this is like, it's ground. But now I'm looking down rather than up, which is the same, but my neck's just bent differently. And it's like it. But anyway, my whole thing was like, I accomplished everything that I had 3 big dreams, and I accomplished them all before the age of 30. My 3 like dreams as a teenager. I wanted to have I wanted to get on late night television. I wanted to have a Comedy Central Presents, and I wanted to put it in a girl's butt.
Put the special in a girl's butt or your dick.
My dick.
I want to make a special for Comedy Central, burn it to DVD, stick it up a girl's butt. Don't ask why. We all have our kinks. I'm asking for consent. I'm not Louis C.K. I'm not Bill Cosby. Search your soul. You'll find something at least, adjacent to this.
Search your soul.
So who's with me? And yes, the DVD will be lubricated. I'm not a monster. And it's shatter-proof. We've coated it in this epoxy resin that prevents shattering. So trust me, it's all good. So dream number 3, here we go.
I always love when misspeak is like funnier than the actual thing you were trying to say. But that was like, it is true that I was like, that you just go like, well, now what am I gonna do? That's
the first thing you told me when quarantine happened, where you said like, well, all my dreams came true, and it still ended up like, if you told me that everything I wanted would come true, and then at the end of the ride I would circle right back to where I'm just living in my parents' house, and it's
at 40. Yeah. Like I would have never believed I could have accomplished those dreams, and I would have definitely never believed that after accomplishing them I'd be living in my parents' house at 40. But there's what was I going to say? But actually anal is like a good metaphor for it, because it's like a great metaphor for how stupid dreams are. Because once you do it, you're like, oh, well, there's a reason why like vaginas have been MVP for 1 billion years running. And
just to think of whoever that woman was as you're sticking it in there, and then what's going through your mind is, well, this isn't all it's cracked up to be. And she's just bent over there like thinking that, well, at least I'm making his life, I'm making his day, but nobody's happy. Or maybe she was happy. Matt Ingerbretson had a joke similar to that, where he started like licking his girl's foot, and then she starts moaning, so he's like, oh, and starts sucking her toes and like starts doing more foot stuff, and then at the end of the whole event she's like, oh, I didn't know you were into foot stuff. He's like, oh, I was doing that because you were responding to it positively. And she's like, no, I was responding to it positively because I thought you were into it. So both of them were just in that experience, and nobody got anything out of it.
Yeah. That's a lot of like the corporate like cheerleading and stuff too. It was like, hey guys, let's all get together, team meeting, like, hey, we can accomplish all these goals, and if you do that, you could get a raise, you could be me, a supervisor one day, and I might be middle management, and then after that you might get and then they're all like, and won't that be nice to go up? And then once they get there, they're like, oh, hey guys, you got to get where I'm at so I can get to the next.
That's like your bit on A Good Trip, which that's not recorded anywhere, is it? Where it's like the DMT being that's like, I get it. There's these things called jobs, and if you work hard, you can get up to the hierarchy. And the person living in the psychedelic world who has a trip and comes to boring corporate world and is blown away from it. Yeah. So that whole hour is not like taped anywhere. It's just in the ether.
That's actually so it's held my career back, it's held my plans back, because the reason why I haven't put anything out in so long was because as soon as my big break came out, I put together A Good Trip, put together like a 111 city tour, like, okay, best show I've ever put together. This is amazing. I've never gotten a response like this. This will be a no-brainer for like Netflix or HBO or somebody. And I was like, oh, I guess this isn't a no-brainer. I guess like my name has like diminished in like some way because I haven't, different people got hot for different things or whatever. And I'm like, well, I'll just wait, because like if someone just sees this, and then I was like, well, psychedelics will come around, and they're getting like more popular now, and it'll be the same thing. So I ran into a lot of barriers. The main barrier was can't say anything good about drugs. Everyone's looking for this is not happening style, like I did too much coke and then I did something crazy and
all
boy did
cautionary
like
tales. Yeah.
all cautionary tales. They're fine. They love that. And anything that's like, hey, this helps you get to know yourself a little bit better. It's like, whoa, we can't tell people to do drugs. And so just ran into barrier after that. Like, it was shocking. And then I was like, well, they'll see, because I was like again, like once someone breaks through and it's like popular, like it's starting now, like Duncan got his Midnight Gospel, and then there was that like Have a Good Trip show on Netflix and stuff.
That
And
one really, like, that kind of pissed me off when I saw that they literally called it Have a Good Trip, and it's like a dumbed down version of what you'd already pitched years ago. I mean, Midnight Gospel is amazing. Not Midnight Gospel, no bad things to say about that, of course.
But yeah, and I thought that
that's not even just
the documentary was right. But that documentary was like fine enough for what it is and whatever. It wasn't the most original name in the world anyway. But so I didn't really care about it. I was like, oh, maybe I'm like one step closer to having that be. But I've just been waiting for years, because people are like, oh, make it an album. I'm like, but if I make it an album, there's like this dumb rule that then you can't make it a special. Like, you don't make a special of a album that you already put out. So now I like haven't put out a show in years because of that. And that's one of the good things about COVID, which is like, it's made me irritated enough with the psychedelic community that's like, you know what? I actually don't want to be that attached to this anymore. I did a documentary that was fine enough. I'm always going to have like all the clout that I could ever want in like the psychedelic communities or whatever. I'll always be like, easily pitchable for like, as the times like advance, and they may not, now that there's like the Q shaman guy, which is what I've been like warning people forever. Like, hey, you conspiracy fucks are going to set everything back 10 years.
Yeah, I had no idea how many there were, which shows that I don't have that many psychedelic-y people in my circle. Because I remember people like you, Colin Frangisetto, Jen Sodini, they're like, every day they're complaining about these Q people that are showing up on their feed. I'm like, what's Q? And then they're explaining it to me. I'm like, that's big? They're like, yeah, it's really big. Like, are you sure it's really, really big? And sure enough, you're like, okay, it's a little bit bigger than I thought it was. It's not going to topple the democracy, but it's still, yeah. It's something.
Yeah, people that I'm sure people thought I was crazy. Like, God, this guy's sure obsessed with conspiracy. But I just got done on Instagram. I posted a video of vaccines. So then some new agey guy is like, oh no, but you trust science? I can't believe. And then he's like, why would you trust? Did you know that this is conspiracy theorist's favorite thing to do. He's like, did you know that the owner of the PCR test, is that what it is? PCR? The PCR test said that it like over detects or whatever. And I'm like, what's that? Let me I'll just clear that up for you. What is it? And then he's like, the owner said this about the COVID test. And I'm like, you want to send me a link or anything? And he's like, just look it up. Why don't you look at it? That's always it's always on you to disprove them, which is impossible. You'll never do that. It's always, they won't provide you with any evidence other than maybe like a meme or a really bad YouTube video. And so then I'm like, all right, I'll look it up. Look it up. First thing on Google search. Here's this weird myth going around about the creator of this test, like people misunderstanding what he said about this thing. And the guy was like a little bit of like a science denier as he aged or whatever, I guess. But anyway, the guy died in 2019. And I'm like, wait. So your source on the COVID test not being legitimate is someone that died in 2019?
Yeah.
before COVID? Are you sure that's your source? That's what you want? That's what you're going with? And he's like, just look it up. And I'm like, why don't you tell me? And he's like, oh, you would get your source from the what? I was like,
The
I just went to the
media.
the main. Like, you told me to look it up. I put it in Google. That's like what you told. And this is like first page is here's all this misinformation going on in like the conspiracy community about this thing. And he's like, I can't believe you. I'm like, so why don't you send me the thing that you want me to watch? And refuses to send me the link. He's like, you look it up. I'm like, I don't know what you're referring to. And then finally, after like all this, because I'm like, let's see if we can get this person to be like, you know what? Actually, I don't have evidence. and then finally, he sends me a clip from YouTube that's like this. It has 20,000 views.
So it's legit.
It was
20,000.
and it was put out that it was like from some site that has nothing but like conspiracy videos, and it's a soundbite from 1997.
Yeah, it's like they're
which is this evidence for why the test doesn't work, which is why he doesn't trust vaccines. Like the amazing like leaps and bounds, and you can't pin any of them down ever, because it's just whack-a-mole. Like if you're like, let me clear that up for you, it's just like, but what about this thing, huh? And part of the problem is that I think it's because of like Snowden and
Assange.
And Assange, where like people confuse science and authority. People think like science is the government, and the military, politicians, and scientists are all like the exact same thing and like the exact same type of. And so like the military, which is like built on secrets for its very effectiveness, whereas science is built on open information for its effectiveness. But because like the military, which does horrific things, everyone knows that, has like a whistleblower come out once in a while, people think that like when there's a fringe scientist that says something to get attention, that they're like a whistleblower in academia. Like all these scientists are keeping a lid on this dirty secret. And then like the 1 out of 1,000 dentists that says, you know what, never brush your teeth again and eat nothing but rock candy, because they can sell a book because that's what people want to hear. And
that's a great business
like
model. Go to dental school just to be that 1 in 1,000 rock candy guy. Like just find that niche. Like, there's no one saying exactly that. No, you're right. They'll take the slightest piece of non-evidence to discredit you, but then their basis is even flimsier. But since it's theirs, it's fine.
It's amazing the way people can use stats to tell themselves. They're like, if 1 or 2% of people that get COVID die, well, it's only 1 or 2%, and then like find some statistic that's like, well, trying to factor in like the percentage of people that get COVID and your likelihood of getting COVID and then dying. So like from going from not having COVID to getting COVID and dying from COVID is like even a much lower percent. And use that to be like, so don't worry about COVID. And then you hear an anecdote about like my aunt who's like not worried about COVID because like who got COVID almost died from it, and is like, oh, it's not a like, still doesn't have like sense of taste or smell or anything. It's like, it's not a big deal because that's like what Fox
I didn't
News
like food
told her.
anyway. Yeah, and there's not that many flowers here, and it's fine.
But then you hear an anecdote about a vaccine that's like, someone died in a vaccine trial. oh, that was someone in the control condition that didn't get the vaccine. You didn't look into that. So people will send me papers all the time that they clearly like don't know how to. Science papers take like a while to read. You know, if someone's never seen a science publication before and you saw one, you'd be like, what the fuck?
I don't know how you engage,
you know,
but I don't know.
You know, you start with the abstract to go from there. It's like anyone can, you know.
Oh no,
just
sorry,
take some
not
practice.
how you engage. Why you engage. I don't know why you engage with, like you were calling it, the whack-a-mole. Like I wouldn't even go in one step. I'd be like, this isn't even a real person. This is just a thing on the screen. I don't need to use my time on this person.
Oh, it's because it's endless all the time, and then they'll like attack my guests and stuff like that. So like I need to like nip it in the butt. And it's like I also learned this, you know, if like say you put out a YouTube video and there's like a negative comment or something on the top, that will influence the perception of people watching the video, because they'll look at the comment and like see that review first before watching it, and you'll get more negative review. Whereas if you just like see some positive, if there's like a streak, so it comes in streaks of like negative or like positive review, like if you have Netflix special or anything
damage
else.
Control. Gotcha.
It's damage control, and it's also like I also want to understand like what the arguments are, but yeah. Anyhow, well, should we get back to actually setting?
Oh yeah, should we
setting goals?
Where are we at right now? We should wrap it up, right? We've got questions.
Yeah, should we do that? Should we do that next, or should we cover questions?
What are the questions about?
Or should we do it next? Or should we do it next time?
Yeah.
You want to do it next time and go into it a little more? Just because this was a great conversation.
Yeah.
And it's exactly what we thought it was going to be, which is like, here's what we think we're going to talk about.
We did it.
And then we're going to go all over the place. And we made some real headway.
Yeah.
And now we have plenty more to talk about in terms of motivation and meaning.
It's endless, just like the endless track, the endless racetrack. There is no, well, we figured it out. No, we're just going to be running around in circles, coming up with new purposes, new meanings, new ways of dissecting it. One thought I wanted to bring up with the motivation thing is that you really, we kind of talked about it before in an abstract way, but it's, the action oftentimes has to precede the motivation, and you have to like travel back in time and become your own grandfather. Like you don't get to just have the motivation. You literally have to go back and do the action for a reason. You don't know why you're doing this, and then you're going to start to feel motivation to do it. So go back in time, become your own grandfather is my message.
Yeah. That is, I mean, yeah, just getting the ball rolling. That's some. Do you ever go for runs or anything?
I haven't in forever. I'm not much of a runner.
Me either. But when I do it, I'm like, this is great. Like before I do it, it's the dumbest form of torture I can imagine. Like what? No, there is no like evolved predisposition to like go run aimlessly.
If I had a spear and there was a gazelle, maybe, and if I wanted to kill the gazelle, and I don't really feel like killing a gazelle, I'd like to watch it in its elegant beauty, but you know.
But for those guys, imagine them killing the gazelle, like starving, exhausted, cooking the thing, like pitching a tent, eating it, and then you just happen to be stationed there like on a treadmill, just like running in place to nowhere, like drenched in sweat, like God, I could do it.
And we've got our imagination, which for some reason works with arousal, like, you know, imagining the naked ladies or whatever. And then we can't do it with, I mean, some people can maybe, but just when running, like, I can't imagine why I would run. I need some kind of VR thing to feed stimulus to add some kind of game element to it, to where, because I'll break a sweat with VR, like, because there's a game element, because it's like I have to chop these blocks, I have to get that score.
I think it's about reframing what's going to happen once you're running. So like the thing like Jocko Williamson's like good thing, my version of that is that like this is such a great mindfulness practice where if I go for a run, which I got a Fitbit at the start of the year, people should go back and watch my podcasts on Fitbits for detecting
That looks like an
COVID
Apple
and
Watch.
illnesses.
That's a Fitbit?
Nope. Yep.
Oh, I thought it was an Apple Watch. Oh. Well, there you go.
So I started running a bit, get whatever smartwatch. And so I'll go for like, I'm just starting, but I'm already at like over 3 miles, and noticing like when the different things happen in my mind. But the main thing is like the stories that I'll tell myself when I'm running, or the things that will like ache, just my body being like, we'd like you to stop for like no reason. Like I don't need to.
Have you read
but
David
like
Goggins?
Your mind will just throw.
Have you read David Goggins' book? Okay, his book is called You Can't Hurt Me, or it's just called Can't Hurt Me. And he's like Jocko Willink, like times 10 and much more on the individual level, whereas Jocko is like, it's about teams. When I was in the SEAL teams, it was about looking out for your brothers, looking out for the team back in the day. And Goggins is all about, like, it's just you out there. And he says when you're about to fail, you're only at 40% of your capacity. When you really feel like you're dead, you're just 40% there. So then you have to turn on the turbo boosters. And he runs ultra marathons in dress shoes. He's just a complete psychopath that loves pain. Me and Johnny Pemberton talked about it for a while, about how, you and I will never reach that level that he is at in terms of discipline, because he was beaten brutally by his father and had a tough childhood and all that. So he's like, has this different relationship with pain, which he's, transmuted into this other thing, which other people can start to approach it maybe, but no one's going to be like him. He's like a special case.
But it's just like for me, it's just like, I'm just curious. I go for a run and I'm just like, oh, what memories will, like when I do yoga, basically every morning, I'll do yoga and then I'll think about, like, my mind will, a memory from being in a yoga studio in Appleton, Wisconsin will spring to mind, which will make me remember the Skyline Comedy Cafe in Appleton, which will remind me of this one particular show that I did, which will remind me of this bar that I went to, which reminds me of this friend's wedding and like that journey is like, I could just sit and be like, word association time. All right, Milwaukee. What do I think of when I think of Milwaukee? But it's not the same as like these things like springing into your conscious awareness. It's like most people are like, oh no, I didn't go to my high school reunion or whatever. And I'm like, well, you missed out, because when I went to my 20 year, to like look at someone that you haven't seen in 20 years at least, and for your brain to be like, who is this person? Because they've aged 20 years. Maybe they put on weight or lost weight or changed their hair or whatever else. And it's been all of that time. And your brain probably gave up on their memory, thinking you were never going to see them again. And so to get to their name, you have to be like, oh, I was in the social studies class with this person that I did this test. And then one time we were in gym and then this happened. And that's how this guy got the nickname Frankie Longlegs. It's you.
That's me. I'm back. I got out of prison last month. Who's got a couch? Oh, Frankie.
But I wasn't in it for like meeting those people.
No, I like that a lot. The the amount of
I was in
explosion that's going to happen there is so much more.
Yeah,
And
I'm just having my own experience.
You just sent me on a trip now, because when you said 20-year reunion, I'm like, how old is Shane? And then I did my math. I'm like, wait a minute, you fuck. Your 20-year high school reunion is going to be coming up next year, like 2022. That's going to be, that'll be 20 years after I graduated high school, which also makes me realize that I'm further away from when I graduated high school than that version of me was from not existing. Like, so I'm further apart from when I was not even an embryo. It's wild.
It is. It's crazy, man. I recommend going if you can.
We couldn't afford it. The last one, I think the 10-year one, they tried to put it together and there wasn't enough funds. And this is pre-COVID, of course, but there wasn't enough interest, wasn't enough funds, and it was at that peak point where we're like, what? We already see everybody's kids on Facebook. Like, what's the point in going to a reunion? We already see each other on these social platforms. But now I feel like, especially after COVID, it's like, oh, I would love to go see Angela Fuckberg's family, even though I only had that one class with them, and her last name isn't even Fuckberg anymore. It's Shitstein.
But like with a name like Fuckberg, you're going to turn into like a pretty peculiar. You're going to have an interesting life, even if you do marry out of it. That name, it's gonna haunt you for a while. It's gonna shape who you are.
Yo, FB.
Well, this is great. Well, everybody, until next time,
keep on
salivating, honey.
Yeah, great episode. Tune in next time where we address your questions. Good night. Keep on salivating, honeys.
Thanks for listening, guys. We have a bunch of episodes recorded coming up. You're going to hear us talk about, what do we talk about? What have we been talking about?
We talk about habit forming. We talk about motivation. We talk about setting goals, forgetting goals. We talk about kind of taking things for granted. We talk about the intellectual dark web. We talk about where ideas come from. We've all got ideas right now, but like, where does that come from? And why do we select the ideas that we select?
You can see that sneak peek on Patreon as we're experimenting.
Ooh, that's
right. What else can they find on Patreon?
So check it out, guys. The Patreon has not only the bonus episode of Mind Under Matter, but there's an entire other series of podcasts called Mind Under Art.
Whoa. A whole other series?
That's right, Shane. And for only $5 a month, I think that's the amount that gets it, you can get access to all those episodes and the option to submit ideas to be discussed on that show. So check that out. It's patreon.com/mindunderpod.
Well, wait, will there be a sense of community on there as well?
There will be an entire communal sensory overload experience. I'm not talking about like a sense like you just sniff community a little bit. You are deep into the community so much that you're going to be begging for a little private janitor's closet that you could just get away from your community for a bit. So if you're a lonely son of a bitch, then you might like having a community of like-minded, intelligent, fun, friendly people.
It's a really important disclaimer. The Patreon might be a little too awesome for you guys. So, be careful. Maybe go and take a taste, see if you like it, and then you might be like, this is too much fun.
Yep.
And
you can always eat more, but you can't eat less.
See you next week, honeys.